Men described in contemporary documents as knights were a very miscellaneous class. Romantic literature has cast an unreal glamour over the figure of the medieval knight. His shining armor, his lance, his spirited horse, his readiness to rescue alike the beauteous damsel in distress or the aged and no longer lovely woman, his valor in tournament, are all part of the fiction and far removed from the reality of 1066. The knights of the time of the William the Conqueror were essentially soldiers, trained in the household of some great men in the art of fighting on horseback. They were crude, rough men, toughened by war, the keen eye to their personal advantage. They had no elaborate equipment as knights. Their armor was a one-piece garment of interlinked riveted rings of metal, falling from neck to knee, the lower part shaped into two leg pieces. A sword, lance, helmet and shield, high leather boots with spurs, a saddle, reins, bridle and stirrups complete their equipment. The helmet was of iron with a long piece coming down to protect the nose. Between 1250 and 1350 there was the culmination of the figure of perfect knight, devoted to the medieval code of chivalry. Chivalry can be defined as the religious, moral and social behavior that the noble and gentle class in Western Europe during the Middle Ages was expected to follow. The idea of chivalry shaped the life of a gentleman from his childhood. His whole duty regarded service to God, loyalty to his lord, military duty and love of bravery. The ancient code of chivalry can be summed up into 10 commandments. The knight was brought up in the use of church sacrament, and his consecration to chivalry was itself a form of sacrament. The Crusader and the Templar defended their holy church against the infidel. Taking part in tournament and jousting was inseparable from the life of the knight, and was strictly connected to the doctrine of law of lady. The knight used to spend his free time hunting, playing music, and in the exercise of the science of gallantry and poetry. The chivalric literature, whether his note was that of love or of deeds of arms, showed that laws of gallantry were more imperious than even those of military honor.
King Arthur is the hero of numerous literary works. His myth has fired the imagination of many writers, but since it represented the ideals of the world of chivalry, it flourished especially in the Middle Ages. Some critics believe that, in fact, the myth first appeared in Wales. Its function was to emphasize Celtic valors and resistance to Saxon invaders. It is this Celtic origin that explains the magic and fantastic elements pervading the stories. Avalon itself is based on a legend about a fabulous land and an idol of glass, which was supposed to receive the heroes after death. Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table were equally famous in Britain and France, and their adventure even reached Germany. It's difficult to trace a uniform line in tales, which were interpreted and told by different poets in different places and periods. However, a few generalizations can be attempted. Alongside the adventure of King Arthur, the story of two other characters spread, and had the success in other countries and other periods: Tristram and Perceval. Tristram is the knight who most exemplifies the ideals of chivalry in the medieval romance genre. Not only did he ride and fence with great ability and grace, but he was also a talented musician, a good linguist, and an excellent chess player. Perceval is the hero of a small but important group of romances which belong to the Arthurian legends. At this point, Chrétien's work stopped and was left unfinished. The same matter was created by Wolfram von Eschenbach, who based his composition on Chrétien, but also employed popular fairy tale elements, especially in the final, which saw Perceval become King of Grail.
Mallory translated, arranged and rewrote from the original Latin, French and English sources of the adventures of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. His work contains a whole range of motifs: courtly love, hope and doom, strange sicknesses, enchantments, quests and journeys, conflicts, fatal or lucky chances. These motifs are gathered together from the Celtic, classical and Oriental past, and mingled with and transformed by the Christian thought and passion of many centuries. The long collection of romances was published in 1485 by William Caxton, who added a preface providing historical background to the legend of King Arthur. In the myth of the rise and fall of his reign, Camelot, Malory explored the forces that bring a kingdom into being and then the construction. Lancelot, the greatest of Arthur's knights, who goes through many adventures and proves to be virtuous and heroic. He stands for the ideal knightly behavior. He falls in love with Queen Guinevere and proves his devotion to her many times, courtly love being a secret part of the chivalry code. Excalibur is King Arthur's mythical sword. It has magical powers and it is associated with Arthur's right to reign over Great Britain. There are many examples of courtly love in Le Morte d'Arthur, including the story of Sir Gareth, one of the noblest and bravest knights, who wins Lady Lioness as his wife. The couple represents the ideal love that ends in honorable marriage. However, the most romantic story of love and chivalry is that of Sir Lancelot and Queen Guinevere, whose love is clearly adulterous. The idea of courtly love is linked with loyalty, sacrifice, renounce and reward, mystery and adultery. These were popular ingredients due to the social reality of marriage in the feudal society. At that time, the mistress often lived with her lord in an isolated castle and married for economic or political reasons. So marriage was rarely synonym with passion. The woman inevitably tempted the few men she came in contact with, usually knights or men visiting the castle belonging to a lower class.
The Knight's Tale found in the Canterbury Tales is the story of two knights from Thebes who fall in love with the same woman, a princess of Athens named Emily. Since the two knights have apparently sworn to support each other in everything, each one's love for Emily does not go over well. Chivalry is a big deal in the Knight's Tale. Chivalry was a system of rituals, duties, and behaviors a knight was supposed to follow if he wished to behave with honor. The rules of chivalry included things like always keeping your promises, defending the helpless, and remaining loyal to your lord and fellow knights no matter what. The Knight's Tale is always concerned with courtly love, which demanded the loyalty of the knight to just one person, his lady love. Courtly love was actually a system of love, just as chivalry was a system of knightly behavior. In any case, we have these two codes of behavior, chivalry and courtly love. In The Knight's Tale, we get to see what happens when the two codes clash. Palamon and Darcy are sworn brothers. As brothers knights, they should be willing to do anything to protect one another. But when they both fall in love with Emily, they have to be willing to do anything to win her, which includes breaking their promises to one another. Brought in to solve the conflict, we have the almost impossibly noble Duke Theseus. He represents another of the tale's major themes, order. What happens when the two systems come into conflict? Well, you need to summon smart and powerful like Duke Theseus to figure out what to do. Theseus' calming, powerful presence in the tale represents authority overcoming the forces of chaos. It reveals this tale's origins in the aristocratic genre of poetry, romance, which portrays the aristocracy as a force for good in the otherwise dark, crazy and scary world.
At the heart of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is the test of Gawain's adherence to the code of chivalry. The typical temptation fable of medieval literature presents a series of tribulations assembled as tests or proof of moral virtue. Complex in plot and rich in language, it is also sophisticated in its use of medieval symbolism, drawing upon Celtic, Germanic and other folklore. The precise meaning of the color green in the poem remains ambiguous. In English folklore and literature, green was traditionally used to symbolize nature and its associated attributes, fertility and rebirth. In Celtic mythology, green was associated with misfortune and death. Nature is presented throughout the poem as rough and indifferent, constantly threatening the order of man and earthly life. Nature invades and disrupts order in the major events of the narrative, both symbolically and through the inner nature of humanity. Nature is an underlying force, forever within man and keeping him imperfect, in a chivalric sense. Many critics argue that Sir Gawain and the Green Knight should be viewed, above all, as a romance. Medieval romances typically recount the marvelous adventures of a chivalrous heroic knight, often of superhuman ability, who abides by chivalry's strict codes of honor and demeanor, embarks upon a quest, and defeats monsters, thereby winning the favor of a lady. So, medieval romances focus not on love and sentiment, as the term romance implies today, but on adventure.